One of the points that we are not doing is there used to be this big push for insulating homes, and we were going to provide subsidies to people, just like the average person, to insulate their homes and give them money to do it. And some reason we keep delaying it, pushing it back.
By insulate the home, you mean what?
Oh, so improve like insulation in lofts and stuff, so to keep heating. So what a lot of homes in the UK suffer from a problem where during the winter a lot of heat escapes, and during the summer, well, it doesn't really matter because we don't care about the summer. The winter is the one that's causing the issues. So a lot of the heat is escaping, and we're keeping our like radiators on, the heating turned up, and it's using energy which is fueled by fossil fuels. So
like gas or coal. Or
so it's a big push now to actually properly insulate homes. So during the winter we don't have to have the heating on.
Right. Okay.
So in my house, for example, where I live, I never turn the heating on.
Right.
It's so warm in my
house. You don't need to.
I never need
save
to.
money, save energy.
I never need to do it because the walls are thick enough.
Even your last place was like that as well, kind of.
Yeah, it was like that as well. The walls are thick enough in which the heat is kept in. Actually, I have bigger problem in summer because it gets really
too hot.
Right.
Because of the way it gets
yeah.
But then in that case, I have to open balconies, that kind of stuff, or get fans. But during winter, I'm chilling in my house in shorts. I'm chilling with no heater on whatsoever.
Yeah, so this guy's living good, whereas my house that I live in currently is freezing. Heating has to be on. If I go in the loft, it's literally, you can see the roof pretty much. There's no insulation there. It's peak. So we could use this scheme really. And what has come out of that is a group called Insulate Britain, which many people have heard of. If you haven't heard of, it's I guess a group of people that have been protesting recently to try and push for the government to implement this, because it's considered to be the most cost-effective way of helping the UK meet its climate goals.
Okay, interesting.
And but unfortunately, they have had a lot of negative light recently due to what they've been doing.
Massive negative light.
Massive. And unfortunately, the media has focused on the negativity and kind of pushed aside the actual problem they're focusing on. But
so what kind of stuff are they saying?
So wait, what do they do? And then why is it negative?
Yeah.
So they are pushing for the insulation that we just spoke about. They want the government to impose it so that it's done across the world, across the UK. Sorry, but unfortunately, how do you get the point across? How do you get the government to listen? So what they've been doing is quite dangerous stunts, where they've been walking out into the M25, which has cars going 70 miles an hour. And
you guys through?
Yeah.
Is there clips of this?
There's videos,
Send me them. I haven't seen it.
In the past 2 weeks, massive traffic issues.
Massive. 5 days in a row, they were walking out into M25.
Massive traffic.
Well, how many of them? Like they're doing like a line.
They stopped the whole thing. They stopped the whole traffic.
How many you reckon?
20 people.
Yo, this is something mad. I can't believe I didn't see this. What?
It's not as you would expect. They don't like literally run out as the cars are flying by.
They stop before
first lane, the slow lane, then they kind of then all the cars are slowing down, so then they get in the second lane, third lane. But the real danger, even though they might not be putting too much themselves in danger, because they're trying to do it ish in a safe way, like they're trying to let the cars slow down. The cars at the back of the queue might slam into other cars, so they're endangering not only their own lives, they're endangering other drivers' lives.
And all the different consequences.
What even gets worse is one lady was in an ambulance who needed.
That's what I was gonna say. What if an ambulance needs to go by?
Who needed to get through, and she was stuck in that traffic for 6 hours.
Is that the one that's paralyzed?
She became paralyzed. And she didn't need to be paralyzed, but because of that, she was paralyzed.
There was some stunt activists. Don't get me wrong, you need to do some sort of active stunt.
And someone spoke to them about it. I remember there's a clip of someone talking to them. You guys paralyzed.
Yeah, you're literally responsible for this.
Yeah. And they were like, look.
It is what it is. That what they said.
No. They were like, the M25 has traffic all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, is what they said. So.
But. These are awful stunts that I don't agree with. I'm sure a lot of the UK don't agree with.
But also explain what happened in Dover.
So recently a similar thing happened in Dover. I wouldn't call this one that much. Like, they're not putting people's lives in danger, but they're essentially blocking HGVs, which are heavy load lorries, and which are supplying our food, our petrol, everything. They're blocking them from leaving Dover port or going across. And that's a big statement because that's our trade. That's a big source of our trade.
This is insane, bro.
That
one's worse than the veganists when they're like trying to save a cow or some shit.
Yeah,
this is some serious activism. Like,
they were crazy.
That's strategic, bro. Where they get all this information on how to do this?
They're trying to step up because their view is, if we don't do something now,
it's urgent.
Our kids will be dying from these issues. So if we sacrifice potentially lives now, which brings light to this issue, it might save more lives in the future, which Technically, yeah, it might.
It's like that thought experiment where I don't know, a train's on tracks and it splits into 2 tracks, and on one of them, on the left one, for example, there's 1 person. On the right, there's 3 people. Which one are you gonna pull to make the train go to? The one with 1 person or one with 3 people? Everyone says obviously to kill 1 person.
Yeah.
But when they're actually, let's say, physically put into that situation, most of the people, this is a theory, that would actually be paralyzed and not be able to save anyone.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to. Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't want to make a decision.
What? Apparently.
I'm saving the
apparently.
Obviously,
Yeah,
that's
good. No, but in theory, you know what I mean.
But a good thing is actually the theory would be better if they said a baby and 3 adults.
Right. Then who would you do?
Which one? Baby or 3 adults? Yo, I don't know, man. How old are they?
Yeah.
Have they lived a good life?
That's what I'm thinking, because I'm like, does the baby need a chance out here?
Yeah.
Also, I'm thinking the baby might not be living a great life if he's on a train track. So
right. Yeah. Who put him there? There's loads of questions.
I just finish it off.
That was good.
But to play devil's advocate, to be honest, name the last protests for climate change that you actually remember.
Those
Extinction Duns,
Extinction
Rebellions,
So
the vegans.
It's the ones where it's something extreme that you have to do to get in the media. It's the only way to get in the media.
It's like when they had those screens in front of people.
Their point is that it's such a crisis, it has to happen now.
Yeah.
But a lot of other people's points is it's not that big of a crisis like that. Like they're like, we can still live majority of our lives, but if we meet these targets, we should be fine.
Right.
But the targets are only to keep the temperature from not increasing further. We've already done huge damage that we can't reverse, and a lot of these targets are like, let's stop it from getting worse, but we've already accidentally fucked up a lot. Like there's a lot of biodiversity that we're going to completely lose now due to the temperature increases. But what I'm most upset about is how the media has changed it only to hate towards these campaigners, which I agree with. They're doing it the wrong way.
What media are you seeing doing this?
All of it. TV channels, social media, radio.
Guess who runs that shit? Probably the government, and they're like, allow it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, because they're taking the focus away from the actual issue that's at hand, and I'm barely hearing anything about the issue. And every time they get asked a question about the issue rather than the protesters, they turn it back to the protesters. That like this issue doesn't exist. And it is really weird hearing them do it, because
maybe then doesn't that make their whole protest mute, kind of?
I guess that's what they're trying to do.
Their approach, but if you think about
exactly.
it, their approach must be shit then. Like, like if I'm trying to protest something and everyone's talking about me being on M25, M25,
and I'm not talking about the climate,
and nobody's talking about the climate, it means I failed at my protest.
I guess, but the question is, no one really knows what the best way to do it is.
Yeah, it's like similar to the last episode we spoke about tax the rich. Is that the right way?
Yeah, so redo. You need to go back to the drawing boards and come up with a better
But if it's
solution.
not big enough, no one's going to care. And then if it's too small, it's not going to change anything.
But make it big without
hurting people.
actively hurting people.
Yeah, that is true. So
peaceful protest, boss. Come on.
I just think they haven't thought about it enough.
Yeah, right. I mean, you can be very creative, but I guess when it comes to humanity, like we only really react if it's like we're in danger. You know what I mean? Like we're in danger of, I don't know, causing too much protest, or the protests are getting too out of hand. So we just have to, like, for example, with the vaccine passport, you know what I mean? Like people are protesting that hard, so they were like, no, we're scrapping that. It's calm, boss, calm down, guys. It's okay, no more vaccine passport.
Yeah,
it's okay.
So some protests do work, even though they don't want to. It's like the don't work with terrorists sort of thing. It's the same thing. We shouldn't really be working with these protesters because it would encourage it. But at the same time, if they keep doing it, which they kind of legally can, because at the moment there have been arrests because they're getting injunctions for certain parts of the motorway, where if they do it on that certain part of the motorway, they can just arrest them instantly. But it takes time, and legally they can only do sections of the motorway. They're not allowed to say the whole motorway. There's this law that prevents it some reason, so they can only be like, once it happens on the M25, they'll try and get an injunction that takes a few days, then that part of the M25 they can't do anymore. Then they move on, and then they move on to the next part, or Dover or whatever, and then it takes time. So
these activists are working smart,
they're coming together well.
These guys
strategic
though.
Maybe they're really highly functioning people. Then that's why they can be so strategic. But strategic strategies have consequences. So
a Paralympic champion from a good few years ago, an English one, has recently superglued his hand to the top of a jumbo jet, or like an airliner. And he did the stance there where he sat on it, because obviously, airplanes cause huge amounts of pollution. Yeah. So he glued himself to the top, and it stopped that plane from being taken off. And there's different things, like even the leader of Insulate Britain has loads of controversy recently, because what he's fighting for is to insulate homes. And apparently he hasn't insulated his own home, and that's what they're focusing on, which I get is a bit controversial. Like he should.
Wait, but isn't the whole point that the government does it?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, like, and
they're dumb. Whoever's trying to argue that
That was Sky or someone or BBC News.
They pissed me off for how shit the journalists are.
Honestly,
they're just so
they're actually
bro.
awful.
Like they're so terrible. Like,
Yeah.
but the thing is, the reason they do this kind of stuff, essentially, I don't think they're actually dumb.
When you say they are, you're talking about the
The presenters.
the presenters of the news.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think they're dumb. I think they're very smart people. They're doing this on purpose. They want to make the protest look as illegitimate as possible.
Exactly.
So that because essentially they're an arm of the UK government.
Yeah.
They don't want these protests happening all the time at all. So they're gonna, if they don't like a protest, they'll make it look as bad as possible, so others don't do the same.
Yeah, but it's sad because some of their arguments are a bit irrational, and you can question them, and it's just like, if I was pushing for the government to implement this scheme, I wouldn't want to spend 10, 20,000 to insulate my own home when I'm hoping the government change their mind and push for this. I can't afford 20 grand or whatever to insulate my own home.
Yeah, I mean,
and those green people ain't got jobs like that, so
and other people
they can't afford that 20 grand. Come on now, who are you lying to?
and other people are arguing, like, you know, the fact that the government's intervening actually makes it an inefficient process, and actually the free market would have solved it better if you gave the right incentives. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how
two sides.
Yeah, there's two sides to the argument. But that was a good one. But actually,